Okay, here's another really quick video on cutting balsa. Cutting with the grain is super easy. You literally just whack your ruler on and you can pull off nice strips really easily. No problems at all. You just keep doing that all day. And they're just really nice strips. Cutting across the grain, which you guys are going to do quite a bit of, is a bit trickier. If you're cutting across, first of all, you want to get the angle right. If you've got one of these, it's easy, but if not, you just have to eyeball it and, you know, maybe cut your pieces very slightly longer and then sand them at the end. Anyway, but with cutting across the grain, if you just go like that, you get what's called tear out, where your cut will pull out a piece of the timber, and your cut might not be straight. So tricks for avoiding tear out. First of all, sharp blade, really sharp blade. You know, when you're modeling, anytime it looks like you're not getting a clean cut, or sometimes even, you know, just because, I just break off my knife blade and get a clean, sharp blade, and it will just cut much better. If you're cutting with a blunt knife, and this is one that is definitely blunt, if you look closely, you can see the tip's been broken off and it's sort of been used for a while without being snapped off. And if I just try and cut that, again, you'll see it makes a real mess of the timber. So don't use blunt blade, snap off, nice sharp blade. Cutting across the grain. So get our ruler. A couple of techniques you can use. The problem with tear out tends to happen at the edge where you finish, because it's pulling the grain out away from the timber. You can put, after you've measured or whatever, just put a very fine, just press in slightly, just put a very fine score there, and then line that up with your ruler. And then when you cut, you'll get a really nice clean edge. It won't tear out at the end. The other trick is, instead of trying to get it all in one pass, do multiple light passes. So 1, 2, 3. And again, it's a nice clean cut with minimal tear out. If you do get a little bit of tear out, you can always get your homemade sanding stick, just a bit of scrap balsa with some 320 grit or 240 grit paper glued to it, and just sand it off a little bit. I tend to sand my ends anyway, just to clean them up, but there you go. Another technique which works well on shortish pieces is, and you really need a sharp blade for this, is just to press down. You can just press down and cut through. But on a thicker piece, if you're trying to cut through, it's a lot of to get through it. And sometimes you end up with this sort of weird rip in the timber. I wouldn't suggest trying to cut end on like that. If you try and cut like that, that tends to happen, which you don't want. So yeah, sharp blade, sharp blade, sharp blade, sharp blade, and multiple fine cuts, really controlling what you're doing so that you don't get tear out at the end. All right, there you go.